Howdy. Today is September 28th, 2022, and I am at Torrey Pines State Beach in San Diego, and I'm here to report that I just, at the 3:51 p.m., where I usually, the past week or so, have been making these 24-hour measurements to see how far the Emperor Dragon Subtle Energy lines have moved. Today I did the measurement at Torrey Pines Glider Port, of all places. And I can confirm that the swath of Emperor Dragon, both pairs of Emperor Dragon lines that run across America, that have now merged into one giant structure, is now in the neighborhood in excess of 600 miles wide. At 3:51 it was 608 miles, plus so over 600 miles wide. And another development is this will probably be the last time I'll be able to measure, because we've run out of country. By this time tomorrow, the southern edge of the swath of Emperor Dragon energy will have passed into Mexico. I haven't looked where the northern edge is, but it's approaching the Oregon border, and will likely get there. You might want to see this. Somebody out for a paraglide, paramotor actually. So something happened yesterday. I had been following the southern edge of the Big Sur node up until yesterday, and I made my reading in Laguna Beach at 3:51, and then shortly after that I encountered the southern edge of, as I continued my way south, I encountered the southern edge of the Quixote node, which is the third of the three nodes that are in Emperor Dragon nodes that are in California. And it's actually the more powerful of all three, because it's made of, I think it's 4 solar lines plus the Emperor Dragon, the Monterey Emperor Dragon that goes through it. So and it's, let's see, the edge was about 304 miles from the center of the node today. So what this means is that it has moved an additional 39 miles from the center since yesterday. And it may be a little more powerful than the Big Sur node, because the Big Sur node, it had moved 34 miles in 24 hours. So anyway, when I saw that, it made it impossible to continue to do continue the measurement of the Big Sur node, because it's now inside of this other the southern edge of this other node, and my projection is that it won't get as far as where I am right now in La Jolla until tomorrow. But that said, I mean, the next day it'll be in Mexico too. So this whole part of California is now covered by at least two, and will likely, before the end of the Harmony period, when they all stop expanding, we're projecting that'll be October 8th. This part of California will be overlapped by all three of the Emperor Dragon nodes in the state. Now, I've been focusing a lot on California because that's where I am and that's where I've been doing these measurements. But the reality is that this line, this Emperor Dragon swath that is now over 600 miles wide, goes all the way across the country from here to Virginia, and it continues and goes around the world. And it's quite possible that all the other five Emperor Dragon pairs are doing the same thing, that they're all about the same size. And the projection is, if they continue to expand at this incredible rate, that within sometime over the next 2 years, the whole planet will be covered in this energy, in this subtle energy. Not just once, but by each of these lines. And so that will be 6 layers of Emperor Dragon energy. And I'm going to try to go deeper into this in this video, because for one thing, the past 2 days when I've tried to go deeper into it, I've been interrupted. I got a phone call the other day, and then yesterday I was asked to move my car in the middle of the video, and so I keep getting asked the question, what does this mean? And I'm going to do my best to answer that question right now. The subtle energy field of the planet pretty much remained the same way for we don't even know how long. Could be centuries, could be millennia, could be tens of thousands, if not millions of years. It's pretty unprecedented that this change is happening in such a short space of time while people are around to observe it. And the reason why it's happening is, as I've said before, the solar system takes, it's 5 billion years old, and it takes 250 million years to make one orbit around the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And each time it makes that orbit, it goes, I don't know if you can see me, it does this. Right? Makes a sine, cosine, what's called a helix. And it makes 3 of those in its orbit. And the middle part of that is the central plane of the galaxy, where the majority of the matter that's in the galaxy is within that short band. And we are now passing above or below, depending what your perspective is, the central plane of the galaxy. And it appears that what's happened is that while we were passing through the central plane of the galaxy, that we were essentially obscured by possibly some sort of massive magnetic fields, possibly just a huge cloud of gas and dust. But what has happened is we have, as we move above the central plane of the galaxy, we are getting into clearer and clearer space. And the result is that between 2017 and 2019, 3 new Emperor Dragon pairs have appeared on the Earth. And just a little quick recap for anybody that is just tuning into this information. What we call the Emperor Dragons are these subtle energy lines that are caused by ultra low frequency sound waves that emanate from the central point of the planet. And what causes those ultra low frequency sound waves is cosmic radiation, beams of cosmic radiation coming from either the sun or from galaxies in our galactic neighborhood. And when those beams of cosmic radiation, which is, cosmic radiation is a catch-all phrase for the full spectrum of radiation from alpha, beta, gamma, X-rays, and so forth. It's all called cosmic radiation. And when it hits the upper atmosphere, it creates these subatomic particles called neutrinos. And at all times, there are neutrinos streaming down through the Earth, down through everything and everyone, and they usually just pass right through the Earth and go out the other side. But at the core of the planet, the densest part of the planet, usually on the quantum level, subatomic particles, they very rarely touch anything because everything is so far apart on that level. But at the core of the planet, the densest part of our planet, enough neutrinos collide with one another to create these ultra-low frequency sound waves that radiate to the surface in a spherical direction and create these matrices of subtle energy lines. So, just another part of the quick recap. There are 3 orders of subtle energy lines that we measure. I mean, there's other sorts of ley lines and whatnot, different frequencies and causes and whatnot. But what I've been measuring, and what my friend Rory McQuestion has been, written several books about and tried to tune people into, is these 3 orders of subtle energy lines that are differentiated by what is causing them. Okay, so there's 3 causes: the Earth, the Sun, and galaxies. To be specific, active galactic cores of the galaxies, of the 6 galaxies in our galactic neighborhood. And so the ones that are generated by the Earth are caused by the core of the planet rotating against its outer core, creates enough friction to create these ultra low frequency sound waves, and they radiate to the surface as these this whole matrix of subtle energy lines that until 2017 were between 1 and 5 paces wide. The second order of line is caused by the cosmic radiation coming from the sun. And same story, create neutrino streams from the upper atmosphere that go down through the Earth and collide at the core and create these ultra low frequency sound waves that radiate to the surface as a matrix of solar generated lines that are up until 2019 were between 10 paces and 30 paces wide. The Emperor Dragon lines, so-called, based on the, I guess, the Feng Shui tradition of Asia, are caused by these ultra-low frequency sound waves coming from the core of the planet, stimulated by the cosmic radiation coming from these galaxies. And when those radiate to the surface, they appear on up until 2019, they appeared on the surface as 50 pace wide subtle energy lines. Since the first time I ever dowsed anything was the node in Big Sur. A node is where two or more subtle energy lines cross. And at certain times of the year, where they cross creates an energetic structure that has a certain quality. And the character of that structure is different for every node, depending on factors like what are the lines, what are the size of the lines, and the origins of the lines that are crossing, what's going on geologically in that area, magnetic fields and all sorts of stuff. But what all nodes have in common is whatever that sacred geometric structure is, it fits inside of a sphere. And what you have, the node itself, the ring of a node, is actually, if you can imagine it, the spot where two spheres touch, one that's below the surface and one that's above the surface. And within those spheres, there is what's known as a tube torus. It's like a giant bagel, where the energy turns around the bagel and towards the center and out the bottom, and then around. It just keeps going like that. So imagine you've got two spheres, one sitting on top of the other, and within each one of those spheres, you have these two bagel-like structures spinning energy, and they're sitting one on top of the other, and they're spinning in different directions. The one under the earth is spinning in one direction, the one above is spinning in another direction. So you have this counter-rotating field thing happening. And what we see on the earth itself, that, its footprint of the node, let's say, back in 2019, it was 50 paces wide. That was just where the two spheres touch one another, right? So, the sphere continues on up into the sky and down into the earth. So right now, at this very moment, the footprint of the Emperor Dragon nodes are not 50 paces wide anymore. They are more than 608 miles wide. So you can imagine the size of those spheres and the tube torus, giant bagels of energy churning within them. And the place where they touch one another on the earth, if you can imagine it, is like imagine two apples where the bottoms are facing one another, and there's like these two cones of energy, one that's coming down from the apple that's above, and one that's coming up from the apple below. And so you have these two cones, one where the flat parts are sitting, are touching one another, and that's the circle of the node itself. And those two cones are spinning in opposite directions. So if you're in the node, you're experiencing a counter-rotating field of this subtle energy. All right? Sounds very dynamic. Sounds really interesting. What is the effect on us? Well, the ancients tell us that these places are quote unquote like portals. The veil is thin between the dimensional planes in these places. It's easier to communicate with those beyond the veil. And these nodes appear at the solstices and equinoxes. So the ancients would celebrate the solstices and equinoxes as a time of communion with their ancestors. If you've been following along any of the work that I've been doing over the past couple of months, the ancients also they buried their dead in the nodes. In Massachusetts, where I'm from, there is what's known as the Royal Wampanoag Graveyard, and the Wampanoag have been living in southeastern Massachusetts for over 10,000 years, and that they've been burying people in that cemetery for 10,000 years, and it is the center of one of the most powerful nodes in New England. There's 4 solar lines that cross there. So it's obvious that whoever started burying people there knew exactly what they were doing 10,000 years ago. And when the colonists came to colonize New England, they started to bury their dead along the Emperor Dragon line that runs through. Along the solar line that runs through there too, because within 5 miles of that Wampanoag cemetery are 5 other cemeteries that date to the Revolutionary period. So another aspect of these nodes, the power of these nodes that we can take from what our ancestors have passed down to us is, and even what from contemporary sources. So the Emperor Dragons are the most powerful subtle energy lines. So you can imagine wherever they cross one another would be the most powerful nodes. As it happens, they don't usually, until recently, they didn't really like to cross one another very often. But up until 2017, there were 6 places on the planet where they crossed one another, and only 4 of those places were on land. Since 2019, when all 3 of the new Emperor Dragons showed up, in case you didn't catch it, up until 2017, there were only 3 Emperor Dragon pairs on the planet. I call them pairs because they literally ran parallel around the world, which isn't much of a stretch when you realize that what we're talking about are ultra low frequency sound structures, right? Sound waves, standing waves of energy that are made out of sound. And so the Emperor Dragons, now that there are 6 pairs on the planet, there are something like 20 different places where they make nodes. And to give you an idea of what a purely Emperor Dragon node is, I when I get to this part of the explanation, usually I talk about Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash is one of those 4 places. It's where 2 Emperor Dragon lines that have been there for as long as anybody can remember cross one another. And it's a place that is sacred to 5 religions in the region. It's the most sacred mountain in the Himalayas. There are several major rivers that originate from its base. And for as long as anyone can remember, people have been making pilgrimage to that mountain. And I think it's important to remember that this was when the Emperor Dragons were only 50 paces wide, right? But the energy was so powerful that people would make pilgrimages to that mountain. And at this very moment, they're making pilgrimages to that mountain. And when they got to the mountain, they would prostrate themselves. So that means that they would lay face down, arms and legs and fingers spread wide, then stand up, take a step, and do the whole thing all over again, all the way around the mountain. And what's really super bizarre, anecdotally, is just in this past week, since the since the equinox, I've met 2 Americans, 2 separate individuals who have made that pilgrimage and described it for me. And each of them spoke about how profound the experience was and how challenging the pilgrimage was. And the thing is here, one of the reasons for bringing this up is you don't have to make that pilgrimage anymore because the Emperor Dragon nodes are coming to you, especially for the people in California. Now, it's not as powerful as purely a node that's made purely of Emperor Dragon lines, but I think the 3 layers of nodes that include Emperor Dragons is powerful enough. Now, I should probably get into, answering this perennial question like, okay, David, what does it mean? I feel it's important for me to say, before I say anything else, to reiterate, and I've said this every time I've tried to talk about this, whatever I say about this is mostly conjecture. It's all guesswork at this point. What I've tried to do is just document what is going on physically, and let events help us discover what it means. But I have observed a few things, and as I was reminded today when I got a message from my friend Rory, I sent him some of my field notes earlier, and he sent back, I may be a little ahead of the curve here, but here goes. What I sense is a couple of things. One, life on this planet has evolved with the presence of these sound structures. And one might even argue that these life evolved because of these sound structures and would not be able to exist without them. Right? Because it's our connection to our galactic neighborhood. And because it's a vibration, because these lines are vibrations, right? Sound structures. And everything in physical existence, in the physical universe, is made of vibration. There isn't any person that is not affected and cannot be affected by this energy. And true to the title of it all, it's subtle, right? The fact that life has evolved in the presence of this energy, and that Homo sapiens have been on this earth for 300,000 to 400,000 years, right? The orbit of the solar system around the galaxy is 250 million years. One sine, cosine, passage, helix of the solar system moving above and then below the galactic center takes 70 million years. It is very possible that the last time the solar system was in the region of space, in its orbit around the galaxy, where it is right now, Homo sapiens didn't even exist. And the changes that we're seeing, that I'm documenting, may not even have happened before, ever. But certainly it's a possibility they may not have happened since Homo sapiens have evolved. That's the perspective I hope that people understand, because it's one thing to be scrolling through your feed and you see some guy, some freaky looking guy, and he's talking about emperor dragons and all this sort of stuff, and you're like, fuck, but it may seem like this is all some sort of grand contrivance of science and whatnot, or food for conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff. I got nothing to do with any of that. My job is, my interest is really kind of to understand the natural history of what's going on. That's the context that I'm approaching all of this with. I got into it because I discovered an archaeological site that I felt in my bones intuitively was connected to the Hopi origin story that I read out of the Book of the Hopi by Frank Waters and published in 1961. That creation story or origin story I found fascinating, and I made a movie about it. And I've written 2 books about it. The most recent one, of course, is the Natural History of Life and Death, published in 2020. And plug, same as self-promotion. But I'm still, at the core of it all, the natural history just fascinates the bejeebers out of me. I gotta know, as far as the mystery goes. I've got to understand it. And boy, have I bitten it off, right? I mean, apparently I'm the only one in North America making these measurements, and charting what's happening in this whole hemisphere with the emperor dragons. And this is so it's like having a front row seat to the evolution of consciousness on the earth, because that, when it comes right down to it, I feel that the effect that this low frequency sound wave matrix and the changes that it's going through right now, in such a short amount of time, in the long run is going to have a lasting effect on the evolution of life on this planet and in this solar system and in this galaxy. Because it's not just the Earth that's experiencing this. The Sun is experiencing it, and all the other planets in the solar system are. Right? Because these are the communications that we're getting from our galactic neighborhood, from the galaxies in our neighborhood, right? And on the subtlest level, each one of us is being affected by these vibrations. And I feel once we take it from that place, it's not that much of a stretch to understand the effect that these vibrations may have on our endocrine systems. Specifically, pineal, pituitary, thymus, and so forth, right? One of the ways you can tell that you're being affected that your pineal gland is being affected is one of the subtlest ways is an increase in serotonin. And if you've ever done any sort of psychedelics, you can, there's a, or even, if you do have any experience with microdosing, what's unique about microdosing is it in a very small way, it increases your serotonin levels in your conscious waking state. And in the early stages, before you realize that you're tripping, you begin to experience this sense of seeing patterns, pattern recognition. Your pattern recognition experiences a little bit of an upgrade, and everything, you begin to see the connections of all things, right? And but that's a symptom, right? That's just a telltale that there's, you're getting not just the effect of that, it's also having an effect on everything else in your body. That means that every cell in your body is being stimulated, is being inundated with more serotonin than it has up until now. And in general, imagine that everybody on the planet is kind of like experiencing a low-grade microdose. That's something to imagine, huh? What are the effects of that? That doesn't mean that everybody's going to be tripping, as they say in the parlance, tripping balls. That's not what's happening. But I want to emphasize what I've said all along, is that empathy is the key to this. The more empathic you are, the more you have to make use of this energy. And the more compassionate you are, the more you have to make use of this energy. At some point on that path, what matters to the world doesn't matter so much to you. Your priorities change. Instead of becoming focused on the tribe, they become focused on your spiritual evolution and the spiritual evolution of those around you. And I suppose now is a good moment to include and reference this vision that I had back in 1998. Suffice to say, I'd been in seclusion for some time in the woods of New Hampshire, and I'd been studying very intensely into the universal energy field and the human energy field, and I had been working on my ancestral lines, healing my ancestral lines on both father and mother, and towards I realized that it was time to go, and the night before I left, I had a vision, and in this vision, all the studying I'd done, it just kind of culminated in this kind of message from the universe or the source, right? And I saw where humanity is headed. I saw that in the coming generations would be so sensitive to energy, to subtle energy, that the world that we live in now would be unbearable, or not just unbearable. They just couldn't They couldn't stand it. They would not be able to stand what we stand now, what we tolerate. They would be intolerable to them. Not because of, any sort of attitude or anything, but just energetically. The example being, our internal combustion engines, they make so much noise and vibration that those vibrations would be disturbing to the general field. And the way that we use lights, same story, the intensity of the lights that we use, so much of what we created was created not out of consciousness, but out of necessity or greed or profit as a motive, without a whole lot of understanding that everyone and everything is in the same field. You pollute the field. Everything that you do, it either supports the field or it's detrimental to the field, not just to yourself and not just to the people that you don't like. Everything and everyone is affected by that, and this will only become more clear in the coming generations. The children being born right now, they already know the stuff. The mental dinosaurs we're trying to overcome right now. Basically we exist. We live in this world, or I should say, our ancestors lived through us. We are our ancestors. Ancestors are everybody beyond the veil, where they've been alive on earth or not. There's just one of us, right? Infinite consciousness, the source of infinite consciousness. And here we are, individuated, right? We have our personalities and we have our spiritual agendas and all that kind of stuff. But all of it exists to serve the creation, the source of the creation, what the general agenda of the creation is, right? And the general agenda of the creation is, infinite love, right? And the experience of absolute truth, right? The experience of joy. And yet, our whole soul group is here because we, of all the other souls out there in the creation, we all 8 billion of us, nearly, really enjoy that fine line between perfection and whatever else you want to call it. We like to surf that edge, right? We like to experience whatever you want to call what isn't perfect. And welcome home. That's what's going on here, right? We can experience suffering. And we can experience the overcoming of suffering. And we are coming to a place where we realize that we're beginning to come awake to the fact that they are we. There's just us out here. And that our thoughts, feelings, emotions are what steer our world collectively. All the thoughts of all the people on the planet at this moment are create the world that we live in. And if we, choose to believe what is not absolutely true, then that causes friction in the creation, and we live the result. So I kind of want to bring it back to, what does it mean, David? Um, I feel that the energy potential is such that whatever we want to make of it, we can. And when or as these energies overlap the planet, we will be able to draw upon that energy potential to do whatever it is that we choose to do. It can't be misused. It's only beneficial, and the only way to tap into it is to be coming from a place of empathy for yourself and for others. To be coming from a place of pure heart, right? And if you're not coming from a place of pure heart, you will not be able to access the energy. That's simple. And as over the next couple of years, as it becomes more and more, covering the planet, at some point, we could call it the internet, right? I've already started to experience this, where at any moment I can just kind of drop into an awareness of the energy, and I begin to experience this sensations in my body that are kind of like a vibration. And in other words, as we have always had at our disposal but didn't know we had it at our disposal, we have the capacity for conscious evolution. And this is only going to accelerate. We're seeing an acceleration. Every one of us has that's exactly what we have seen in our lifetime, how everything is accelerating. But now we're going to begin to see things accelerate on the spiritual level. It'll be more obvious. And what we've been able to quote unquote get by with or get along with in the past will for a lot of us become unbearable, as we've seen. And the energy potential is limitless for this. There's no end in sight. There's no way it's going to stop expanding. It's only going to become more and more and more by the moment and by the hour and by the day and by the week and by the month and by the year for the rest of our lives and the generations that follow after us. I'm an optimist, but I don't think that anybody actually needs to be with something like this, because it's that much of a done deal, you know. So what does it mean? What does this expansion of the energy mean? I feel in a way that it's this is what we all chose to come to Earth at this time for. You know, every one of us deep down has kind of wanted to see the world become something more than what it was when we arrived. And despite how things may look in the news, you know, with catastrophes and so forth, overall, the energy potential has never been more than right now, and will only, by this time tomorrow, it's going to be even more, and by the day after that, it's going to be even more, you know. So what in that vision, I saw that we were all the humans that would be alive, the generations from now, the seventh generation, that whatever cultures existed on the planet would be based, focused, their foundation would be an understanding of subtle energy. That would be the basis of the culture. And which doesn't mean that you can't still have markets and capitalism and political organizations and all that kind of stuff. For a time, that will continue to go on, because it's all transition. It's all part of it. We're in transition, and we will be for the rest of our lives, both individually and collectively. So this is what I'm seeing, and whatever the change was that you were hoping for, it's begun, and there's no off switch. It doesn't back off from here. It only goes forward from here. And sensitivity to subtle energy, and whatever we can do to promote that in our lives, is nothing but beneficial to both ourselves and all the lives our life touches. So I guess if I were to say, what does it all mean, is that the world that we have all hoped and prayed for and dreamed for has begun. And it may not look like it for a while, and it may look even a lot darker than it is right now. But I trust in the source of all that is, and what I've been given to understand. And what I've been given to understand is nothing more spectacular than this right here. That made that, all of that is within each one of us. And that there's that line in Christianity where people make a big deal about what Jesus was able to do, and he says, what I've done, you will do even greater things. And without getting into why that is, in terms of the metaphysics, which I can at another time, that's what's up. Those brothers that just went by here, and those paramotors, they couldn't do that 2,000 years ago, and yet if they, even 100 years ago, if one of these guys flew by, it would be, global news. But, here these guys fly by, and it's like, so what? Somebody turns over and goes back to sleep. It's like, it's no big deal. But imagine the world when a critical mass of us have chosen the focus of sensitivity to subtle energy and conscious evolution. Imagine the level of compassion. Situations like what's happening in Ukraine would be impossible, because or what's happening to the Uyghurs, or just as examples, anybody else's pain is our pain. And We all win when any one of us wins. We all soar when any one of us soars, right? So I hope this helps give some kind of understanding to what is transpiring right now. I won't be able to, I'm not going to go into Mexico following the lines, and I don't really have enough gas to make it all the way to the 600 miles north to get to keep following it through the end of the Harmony period as the line expands up into Oregon. But suffice to say that the United States itself is going through this transition where suddenly this ultra low frequency sound wave sound structure is permeating the majority of the country, coast to coast, and is only going to become more intense as the days go by. Not just to the end of this harmony period, but I mean, it happens every solstice and equinox, so it's only going to become more intense. And the more we can sit within ourselves and be at peace, the more we can take advantage of this. And we're meant to. This is not, it's not like you have to sit in a monastery for years or lifetimes to take advantage of this. This is the age that we live in, where what you would have to have, made this pilgrimage to a mountain in the Himalayas to experience, as I said before, it's coming to you, that same energy. And so the question is not what does it mean? The question is, what do you want to make of it? If you don't want to make anything of it at all, if you just want to pretend like it's not happening or ignore it or whatever, you have free will. You're more than welcome to do that. That said, if your daily reality is grounded in the truth of the existence of the source of all that is, within everyone and everything, every scintilla of space, time, and matter, if that's your foundation, then you know that you are right where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, or what the universe would want you to do most, which is to give the universe your undivided attention at every opportunity, right? So when that's your operating system, right, you find synchronicities. I should mention that synchronicity is another one of those telltale signs, like pattern recognition, that you'll experience through this energy. You'll arrive someplace and people say, "This is amazing. I was just thinking about you," or "You are so on time," So I will tell you that whatever you do to stimulate your consciousness, to expand your consciousness, whether it's through substances or through focus or through exercise or through doing absolutely nothing, whatever your intention is, if you have a spiritual intention for something, that is only going to be amplified by this energy potential. And I refer to it as an energy potential because it is nothing but all up to you, to each one of us, and our daily choices about what it is that we chose to come to Earth to accomplish, if anything at all. Some of us are here just to enjoy the ride. whatever that means for us, and that's okay. There's plenty of room for that. So long as we're not raining on anybody else's parade, or trying to harm ourselves or anybody else, have at it. Usually in those situations, though, there will be lessons learned, not just by you, but by all the lives that your life touches. So there's that. Anyway, I feel like I've been trying to touch on something, and I'll probably give it another shot another day, because there's just so much to realize and to share about it. So if you just tuned in, I'm going to post this, and you might want to watch the beginning, because I kind of get into more of the answer to the question of what does all this mean. Finally, after this is my third or fourth or fifth try of trying to answer that question, and I don't think I did it any kind of justice today. But we're gonna work on the delivery, and we're gonna work on the message or something, or maybe not. Maybe we'll just let the universe speak through us, as they say in the big book, right? Give no thought to what you will say or what you will do, but know that in that hour, the Spirit will speak through you, right? Yeah. So check this out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the work. Yeah. I will say that one of the most amazing experiences of life are those moments when you feel that you are right where you're supposed to be, and you've done what you came to Earth to do. And I have lived my life with that as a focus. Always asking, like, where do I need to be, and what is it that I need to do right now? And often, I got to tell you, especially in the past 3 years, often the answer to that question has been to relax, to nurture myself, to take a load off, to get as much rest as I need to get, yeah. So, resting and rejuvenating yourself is the work too. So, just saying. All right. Here we go. And remember, we love you.